All right, we're good to go. Everybody can see?
Yeah.
Cool. All right, so I'm Nisa. I'm the marketing manager at K12 Computer Science, and I come from a background of education data, ed tech, publishing. So I'm really excited to be a part of this session today. So we'll be talking about cultural teaching practices in the classroom, and then we'll jump into the online course to get started on some programming. So just take a moment. I'd like everybody to answer this question in the chat to get some early engagement going on. What does culturally responsive teaching mean to you, or what are some teaching practices that you currently use in the classroom right now? Let's get a few answers in the chat, and then we're going to dive a little deeper into this topic and talk about some teaching practices. Or feel free to come off mute and join us here on the stage. Okay, teamwork. Yep, Omar, teamwork. Anybody else like to share? Being aware of our students' backgrounds and cultures, for sure. Great answers. Avid community builders. Personal backgrounds, yep, great. All good stuff. So to support the 4 practice areas of Ready for Rigor, which you focused on in yesterday's session, we're going to briefly discuss some teaching practices you can introduce in the classroom, and that will touch on each of these quadrants. So first, let's start off with a brief activity. This is based on chapter 2 in Culturally Responsive Teaching and the Brain, and this is kind of an abridged version of Peggy McIntosh's article, Privileged Scavenger Hunt. So we're going to do a brief activity here. If it makes anybody feel uncomfortable, let us know and we'll move on, or don't participate, up to you. So I'm going to make 5 statements, and I'm going to ask everybody to hold their hand up like this. You can show it on camera or not, your choice. And each time you've experienced one of the 5 statements that I mentioned, deduct a point by simply just putting 1 finger down. So remove a point if you've ever experienced applying for a job and feeling like you weren't selected because of the color of your skin, your name, your zip code, where you reside. Remove a point if you've ever experienced a lack of educational resources based on your zip code. Remove a point if you've ever been in a store and store clerks wouldn't stop staring at you or wouldn't assist you. Remove a point if you've ever completed a survey application or other legal form or any form that doesn't have your race listed. Remove a point if you've ever been profiled based on the car you drive, your orientation, your accent, or the way you dress. So now I'm going to add a little link to the chat window, and this will be a poll. And I want everybody to let us know how many points you ended up with. So I'll give everybody a few moments to get those responses. We have quite a range here. Interesting, interesting, okay. I think we're good. Oh. So a big mixture here that we're seeing, a range of opportunity going on. But you can see that based on those responses, we do have a severe opportunity gap at the level, and the level of underrepresentation becomes greater in high schools. Black and brown people live with these economic disadvantages every single day. And let's not forget about the LGBTQ+ community. If you look at the chart here, which is also embedded in your online course, you'll see that 21.9% of students taking the 2015 AP Computer Science A exam were female. And that's the worst female participation rate of all AP exams. Only 3.9% were Black or African American, 9% Hispanic or Latino, and 0.4% American Indian. While CS learning is becoming a little more common in inner city communities, this isn't as common as it should be. And there is a disconnect between students of color and computer science and many other subject areas. The economic and educational advantages and disadvantages definitely need to be considered because not all students come into class understanding a topic. Students are primarily able to make connections with their cultural experiences and learning material. So what's the solution? Touching on information processing, one of the four quadrants, it's to shift your teaching to adapt. When students are learning, their brain is searching for the relevance in those materials that you're teaching, and it adapts to what their brain is already exposed to. Because of this, you have to shift your teaching to adapt to your students. So a few things that could help. One, always get to know your students' families. I believe we had somebody speak about that yesterday, and interact with their families, whether they seem engaged or not. One of your students may have 3 siblings with parents who are always working, or they may live in a single parent household. The student may come to school distracted, sleeping, or with their mind in another place. My partner is actually a teacher, and sometimes there's been plenty of nights that she would stay up until midnight or wake up at 4 a.m. just because she had families that had 3 jobs, one parent having 3 jobs. So perhaps setting some phone hours or putting that extra effort in to schedule calls just to check in with families. Try not to assume that they don't want to be involved. Next, try to keep students engaged through exciting projects and collaborations so that they are able to retain the information. Try not to lecture so much, but instead use videos, visuals, ask students to be your assistants for the day. And you'll see that embedded in our course as well, many different videos and visuals to use. And lastly, try not to teach until the end of class. Students do not learn very much at this time. Instead, take those last 3 to 5 minutes and let them talk about what they learned that day to each other, not so much to the teacher. So anybody else, do you have any other suggestions for cultural teaching practices, or what are you doing right now that cater to students' different backgrounds?
Hi, this is Omar. This is really impactful. I support 60 students that are ages 16 to 21 that either have an IEP or a 504 plan, and their needs are very diverse. And ever since we went into this distance learning model, I'm like pulling in students into Zoom rooms, if you will. And I'm really realizing, even though all these students were on campus together, they did not know each other at all. So it really is a lot about getting to know you, and in my case, helping students to really become comfortable with sharing out about their disability or what the needs they have to help them be successful. And that's been an interesting strategy to acknowledge where they are and really enter the conversation really in that way. Has been different.
Great. Thanks for sharing. And I see Rochelle and Ray. They're here in the chat. Let's see, voice and choice, working on becoming bilingual, restorative circles, pronouncing students' names correctly. Awesome. So we all have great ideas here. And we do have a forum as well that we can share all of these ideas, and we'll have a space for you guys to always refer back to. So let's remember that our country was not built to benefit Black and Brown people. And just 60 years ago was the first time a Black girl was able to enter a white school, which is kind of mind-blowing. It's not that long ago. So as an educator, being able to foster these cultural connections, again, touching on learning partnerships here, one of the 4 quadrants, this will allow you to become more aware of the socio-political context and help students expand their intellectual abilities. Make sure you do your own research on racial history. And I'm not talking about, the well-known notable figures, Harriet Tubman, Martin Luther King. While they are incredible people, go beyond that and read about the story of Emmett Till or international pilot Bessie Coleman, and share that these these figures with your students, post them around the classroom, you know, make it notable that they're able to do something great with their lives because other people do it as well. Recognize and embrace all the cultures, languages, and techniques that your students bring to the table. Also give them a chance to share their stories through CS. While this can be a challenging project, it's also a rewarding one and benefits everybody in the classroom by learning about each other. So that brings us to this question. How do you teach students who are exposed to crime, hate, and other negativity? Does anybody have anything on that? I'll give it a few moments.
This prompt reminds me of a quote I would often hear, that you can't be what you can't see. So I know I would often find ways to support my students in seeing representations of themselves in those places and spaces that they might not normally. I know living in Orange County, the interesting is I can work with students that can be, you know, right around this major hub of either technology or development, but they may not realize what's happening right around them. So sometimes it's about creating those pathways to discovery and access that can maybe spark their own interest to help them learn more and do something different.
Cool, cool. And let's see, Jane entered in the chat, sharing her stories, making herself vulnerable. That's definitely one of those ways to adapt. Checking in with them often, seeing where they at is a tough one. Okay. Oh, a moment by moment thing. Okay. Thanks, Ray, for sharing. So one way that I've been reading about lately, and something that also my partner does in her classroom to promote a positive mindset and have students tap into their greater potential, is to integrate a calming meditation music as they enter the class or display an ocean background. And it may sound a little crazy at first, but having this time, this 3 to 5 minute time of a student entering a room with, you know, no chaos at that moment, and it allows them to relax for a moment and think about the things that they enjoy. Ask them to close their eyes. Think about what makes them happy, what they're excited to learn about in CS today, and what they're looking forward to do. So here we're going to wrap things up. And then you guys are going to start on your PopFizz platform. So just to wrap things up, students, they must trust that you want the best for them, because at some point in their lifetime, you know, Black and Brown students specifically, the reality is that they may encounter a mentor or a teacher that tells them, you know, you're not going to make it to a certain stage in your life, or you're not enough to graduate from college. And to help break this cycle, I also suggest that everyone, teachers, you know, educate other teachers and definitely guidance counselors when it comes to computer science and those benefits, and encourage them to promote these classes to students of all backgrounds. Some ways to do this: host a CS teacher guidance meetup to discuss, bribe them with cookies, donuts if you have to, bring coffee. Create a coding club if your school doesn't have one already. If you do, how about an all-girls coding club to promote, you know, coding in that for females. And then we're also going to share a link in the chat. I'll have to pull that up, or maybe somebody in my team will add it to our forum. And there we're going to keep the conversation going on culturally teaching in CS. And there's another forum prompt here on this slide that you'll see embedded within the course early on once you log in. And yeah, that pretty much sums it up for me. A quick and easy little moment here. And I'm going to turn it to Jane now, who will explain a little bit about the forum. And thanks for your participation.
Thank you so much, Nisa. So I'm going to share my screen now. And I should have done this yesterday, but I thought I might do this right now, which is go over what's going to be covered in the 5 days. Well, right now it's day 2. So I'll start with day 2 content. So in the course, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be learning about computational thinking. And there's going to be a nice video for you and lots of pseudocode activities. And we assume that the teachers who join us have no background in computer science at all. So I hope you enjoy this. So here's the video. And there's also a little bit of description of what computational thinking entails. And there are maze type questions, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with. After that, you also have pseudocode exercises. And we do all this warm up so that on day 3, we are able to start coding using HTML, CSS. And on day 4, we're going to be using JavaScript to make our code interactive. And then on day 5, we are going to do something very, very awesome, which is to program a teachable machine. So basically, we're going to teach an AI to distinguish different things based on what you show it in your camera or sound or motion. This is the overview of the 5 days. And the overarching theme would be culturally responsive teaching in CS. So you'll see that content being interweaved and introduced throughout the course. And one other thing that I wanted to mention was I noticed that day 1, there's a small activity that was due, which is number 7, forum activity, the struggles. So these are the questions that Omar asked yesterday in the slides. And I thought, if we could have a place where we could talk about this a little more. I know that we were limited in time. So if you can jump to the forum, there's a link to it right here, and answer these questions. So what are some of the struggles in your CS classroom? And I know that a lot of students and teachers have CS anxiety. So how do you actually create a brave learning environment so that students become a little more bold in terms of making attempts, doing challenging things? So what do you do for them? And I'm sure a lot of teachers in this forum are struggling with the same problem every day. So if you can help them out in any way by sharing your story, that'll be great. So this is the assignment for day 1. So if you have access to the course, please make sure to visit the forum and answer the questions. And today we're on day 2. Please go through the questions. If you ever get stuck, you can ask us a question by going to the dashboard. And let me show you what's there. So from the dashboard, there's a little chat icon in the corner, and there's someone hanging out there all the time. So it will give you a response within 5 minutes. So talk to us here if you ever get stuck. But the course content right now should be manageable. So please try them out. And then on day 3, we'll do a quick review of the content that we've learned on day 2, and then go over a little bit of HTML, CSS. If you're already comfortable with the coding concepts in HTML and CSS, great, because day 4 will be a great day for you. So yeah, check out the course. If you have any questions, ask us. And that is it for me. I'll pass on the mic to Omar and have Omar wrap up the day.